He really didn't like Dan Blocker more than anyone else. Bobby Dan Davis Blocker was born on December 10, 1928 in Decatur, Texas. He was raised in the rough hills of Texas, where he learned to be humble, work hard, and have a strong sense of family. Even when he was a child, Blocker had a special mix of strength and gentle kindness that would later make him famous in his movie parts. Blocker lived a sincere and purposeful life before he became famous. At 6 feet 4 inches tall and about 300 pounds, he was a real gentle giant. His parents ran a small grocery store in O'Donnell, Texas. It was there that he learned how important it is to work hard, be responsible, and fit in with others. After going to Texas Military Institute, he started at Sul Ross State Teachers College. The kid did really well in school and also became famous on the football field. His peers admired how determined he was and how good he was at sports. After getting his degree in English, he went on to get his master's degree in performing arts. The first few years of his life taught him discipline, desire, and how to find his way. Before working in show business, Blocker was proud to have served his country. As an Army sergeant, he was sent to fight in the Korean War when the U.S. Army was called up. His time in the military helped him learn more about courage, leadership, and suffering. Blocker often talked about how his time in the war changed his view of the world and made him more empathetic toward others. People who served with him said he was honest all the time, quiet but strong, and always kind, even when things were getting tough. When Blocker got home from the war, he went back to Texas and became a teacher. He loved teaching history and literature to his kids. However, fate finally pushed him to act. It wasn't easy or quick for him to get to Hollywood. Still, his hard work paid off. He started getting small parts in TV shows like The Rifleman, Gunsmoke, and The Restless Gun in the late 1950s. This was the start of a playing career that would become famous. The natural charm and towering presence of Dan Blocker made it hard for casting directors to miss him. When he got the part of Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza in 1959, everything changed. He wasn't just famous because of this role, it set the tone for his whole career and made him one of the most beloved TV stars ever. Hoss, the middle Cartwright's son with the kind heart, showed what Blocker was really like. Kindness, humor, compassion, and strong morals lead them. People were drawn to Hoss's sincerity right away, and Blocker's acting gave Bonanza an emotional core that balanced the action and adventure of the show. From 1959 to 1973, Bonanza ran for 14 seasons, making it one of the longest-running and most popular TV shows of all time. Before he died suddenly in 1972, Blocker was in 415 shows, and during that time he became a TV star. He stood out not because he was tough or brave, but because he was honest, kind, and human. Both fans and critics constantly praised him for adding a rare warmth to the Western genre. Hoss was often the emotional center of the whole series. People loved him just as much when he wasn't on camera. Blocker's honesty was often praised by co-stars such as Lauren Green, Michael Landon, and Pernell Roberts, who called him the moral center of the group and said that he never let fame change who he was. The same depth was in his personal life. Dan Blocker's marriage to Dolphia Parker Blocker is still one of the most real and lasting love stories in Hollywood. The two of them have been together for a long time, long before Dan became famous. They met while they were young and going to Sul Ross State University in Alpine, Texas. Their friendship began with similar values like respect, kindness, and a preference for simple things over flashy ones. They got married in 1952, a long time before Bonanza made Dan famous. Just like them, their wedding was simple and from the heart. Dan was still working as a teacher and in small parts as an actor to support their young family at the time. Whenever he was unsure, Dolphia was there for him, always there for him and believing in what he could do. His determination was fueled by her quiet strength, which helped him keep going down a difficult road long before he reached success. But even when Dan's career finally took off with Bonanza in the late 1950s, Dolphia stayed by his side. Instead of being in the focus, she took care of their house and raised their kids while Dan worked long hours on set. Friends often said that Blocker stayed humble and truly devoted to his family, even though he was famous. This is proof of how calming Dolphia was and how stable she made his life. They had 4 children together, twin sons David and Dirk, a daughter Deborah Lee and a son Dana Lynn. Their house was full of love, normalcy, and strong morals. These are the things that made Dan Blocker who he is and gave him his fame. It was always warm, funny, and easy to be happy in the Blocker house. Dan often said that Dolphia kept things in check. His fame went through the roof, but he wouldn't let Hollywood change how he treated his wife or kids. He talked about her with real affection, calling her the best thing in his life and the person who kept him grounded. They stuck together through the ups and downs of show business, long days on set, public attention, and the constant demands of fame. But it never gave up. Everyone who worked with Dan knew how loyal he was to Dolphia. Many actors liked the Hollywood nightlife, but Dan liked going home as soon as the filming was over. He would rather spend quiet nights with his family than going to industry events. Bonanza was one of the most popular westerns on TV. The story of the Cartwright family kept people interested for more than 10 years. Ben Cartwright and his two boys, Adam Hawes and Little Joe. On screen they looked like a team, but things were often much more complicated behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, one of the most tense situations was between Dan Blocker, who played the kind and friendly Hawes Cartwright, and Pernell Roberts, who played Adam and was very serious and smart. Dan was from Texas and used to teach. He was an Army veteran and was known for being kind, loyal, and easygoing. He just wasn't the type to hold grudges. Still, even he had trouble with Roberts. Their fight wasn't about getting attention or fame. It was caused by people with very different styles and ideas. Roberts spoke his mind and was often upset with the writing on the show because he thought it lacked depth and didn't deal with important topics. He didn't mind challenging directors or criticizing scripts that he thought were too easy to guess, but Blocker believed in being professional and keeping true to the series that had made them so popular. It seemed like Roberts wasn't thankful for the cast and crew's work and was talking badly about them all the time. Blocker said in a conversation, "Pernell thought he was smarter than everyone else. He might have been, but that doesn't mean he can treat other people badly." He said that working with Roberts was like walking on eggshells because Robert wouldn't always practice lines that he thought were beneath him. Blocker was proud of being helpful and focused on working as a team, so this behavior went against everything he stood for. He often said this set is like a family, and a family shouldn't tear each other down in front of people who come here to work. The difference in their ideas only grew as the years went by. Roberts wanted to leave the show because she felt trapped and uninspired. Blocker, on the other hand, really liked Bonanza and saw it as a great chance to bring good, clean fun to American living rooms. Blocker once said that Roberts believed Bonanza was too good, too honest, and too gentle. But Blocker said that was just what people needed, some good things in their lives. That was something he never got. Even though they didn't always agree, both guys were very dedicated to giving honest, believable performances. A shared commitment that showed on screen even though things were still tense between them in real life. Pernell Roberts had trained as a classical actor, so he approached every part with great care and intelligence. For Dan Blocker it was gut, honesty, and being present that helped him. Mind versus heart, their differences became the main contrast in their relationship, and in many ways, showed the creative tension that gave Bonanza its own life. Behind closed doors they sometimes had very heated arguments, but they never got physical. It was well known among the group that Blocker and Roberts didn't get along. Michael Landon once said that Dan tried his best to be gentle, but Roberts always pushed people too far. Blocker had a complicated feeling of relief and sorrow when Roberts finally left the show in 1965. Afterwards he said, "I never meant him any harm. Still, I was glad the fight was over." After Robert left, the mood on set got a lot better, and Blocker's happy attitude came back. Still, there was some anger left over. According to Blocker, Roberts was smart, but his anger made things hard for everyone else. Blocker's anger did, however, lessen over time. Roberts then worked in theater and kept speaking out about social problems he cared about. Even though they never made peace before Blocker's sudden death in 1972, he did talk about Roberts with a tired respect in later years. Blocker once thought that he might have been right to want more, but he forgot to be grateful for what he already had. Their complicated friendship is still one of the most interesting behind-the-scenes stories on TV. A fight between two talented actors who loved their work but had different ideas about what real art should look like. Blocker wasn't just angry because he hated someone. It came from being let down. He was let down by the fact that someone he admired for being smart could also be cold, critical, and emotionally detached. In the end, their accomplishments were not the same. Blocker was known for being friendly, generous, and helpful. People noted Roberts for being independent and not giving in easily. Both of them had important effects on Bonanza, but Blocker's kindness and honesty were what kept people talking about him long after the show was over. You shouldn't have to like everyone you work with, but you should try to value them, as Blocker once put it. Panel did not let us have that chance. Dan Blocker, who was best known for bringing the beloved Huss Cartwright to life on Bonanza, died suddenly on May 13, 1972. His death shocked the whole world. He died in Inglewood, California when he was only 43 years old. His death left Hollywood and his millions of fans in a painful void. They admired not only his ability, but also the genuine kindness and humanity he showed on and off screen. A sudden catastrophic blockage in the lungs called a pulmonary embolism was the official cause of Dan Blocker's death. It happened soon after what was supposed to be a normal gallbladder surgery at Daniel Freeman Memorial Hospital. He went to the hospital for a normal, easy surgery. His doctors and he both didn't think it was really dangerous. But after the surgery, problems that were not expected happened. He went into cardiac arrest when a blood clot formed in his lungs and blocked his oxygen intake. The terrible news was later confirmed by his family, and early stories made it very clear what had happened. Blocker went to the hospital to have surgery on his gallbladder, but he got a blood clot in his lung and died. That one line showed how sudden and shocking his death was, especially for a man who was known for being big, strong, and kind. Blocker was the show's moral heart, and his death seemed almost unreal. His death was very sad for Dyke, his wife, and their 4 children, David, Deborah, Dana, and Dirk. Dirk later became an actress himself, and it was also sad for his second family on the Bonanza set. Everyone on the set and team was scared to death. Heard that Lauren Green, who played Ben Cartwright, cried when he heard the news and said it was the end of an era. Michael Landon, who was one of Blocker's best friends, was heartbroken. So deeply did he feel the loss of his longtime co-star and beloved friend that he later changed parts of Bonanza to reflect it. Dan Blocker's life wasn't just about being famous in Hollywood, getting good numbers on TV, or being loved by the public. Instead, his reputation was built on quieter virtues like honesty, kindness, strength, and the simple but deep belief that doing good things matters. People like Blocker stood out because he never tried to be anyone else. He didn't want to be recognized because he was ambitious or concerned with his ego. His journey started a long way from the fancy state of California. He grew up in Texas, where hard work was not an option but a way of life. His childhood didn't show any signs of his future fame or dreams of being famous. He was just Bobby Dan Davis Blocker. He was a big boy with an even bigger heart, shaped more by the general store his parents ran than by the attention. Working early to stock shelves, help neighbors, and watch his parents do good things for the community taught him that deeds, not praise, earned respect. He would keep going back to those roots, whether he was aware of it or not. That humble Texas spirit never changed, not even when he was on the football field, in a classroom full of young students, on the battlefield in Korea, or on TV, surrounded by cameras and directors. He never tried to get famous, it found him. He didn't fight it, he kept his loyalty on the people and things that were most important to him. People saw something real when he played Huss Cartwright, a figure who was kind, funny, loyal, and passionate about doing the right thing. Being Huss wasn't a show, he was a part of the real person behind the role. Blocker didn't need to make dramatic statements or use flashy acting to move people. He only added warmth to the picture. The earnestness of his words resounded in millions of homes, bringing families together every week around the TV. One way to describe Huss is as someone who made people wish they knew or could be someone else. But when he wasn't on TV, his goodness wasn't something he did for people to see. On set, both the cast and the crew often looked to him for direction, even though he was never officially named boss. His coworkers looked up to him because he treated everyone with respect. The same sense of honor that he learned in that Texas shop. He wasn't interested in power, drama, or feeling important. Success never changed who he was, it just made it easier for him to have a good effect on other people. This was the exact reason why his tense relationship with Pernell Roberts hurt so much. It wasn't hate based on competition, envy, or anger. It was sad to see brilliant ideas pushed aside by pessimism. Blocker had a lot of respect for brains. After all, he was a teacher and a researcher who valued critical thinking. But he didn't understand why it could be so hard sometimes. Blocker didn't hear artistic anger when Roberts threw out scripts or put down the show. He heard someone not being thankful. He thought that disrespecting the work meant insulting the people who worked hard on it. Thanks to the writers, camera crew, makeup artists, stagehands, and everyone else who came to work every day to make Bonanza happen. Blocker wants peace. He wanted to be decent. People's differences should be respected at work, but they should never be used as tools. He thought that ability and humility should live together, even though Hollywood often makes people cocky. And while Roberts fought for freedom of thought, Blocker fought for unity of feeling. At that time, their disagreement wasn't about right and wrong, but about two different ideas about what work and art should be, one intellectual and one human. This tension showed something deeper about Blocker's character. He cared more about people than about ideas. He thought that art should bring people together, not separate them from each other. It wasn't victory that Blocker felt when the set finally felt calm after Roberts left. It was relief. Not because entry was gone, but because the set didn't feel like a place where different ideas were fighting anymore. His main goal was peace, not success. Respect was more important than approval. In his personal life, he was just as committed to being stable and kind. His marriage to Dolphia wasn't based on fame or glamour like some Hollywood relationships are. For talks or magazine covers, it wasn't there. Instead, it was a story about people who shared beliefs, were loyal, and always stood by each other. She wasn't married to a wealthy person. Her boyfriend became popular, and she was with him. Together they made a life that was based on meaning rather than performance. He loved her more than any award or paycheck, and she studied him when things were unsure. Everything he stood for was reflected in their home. Understated, happy, real, and full of laughs. He wasn't Huss Cartwright in that place. He was just Dan, a husband, a father, and a man who liked to read to his kids, fix things by hand, and have dinner with his family instead of going to parties for his job. Still, the sudden ending of his story may be the most sad thing about it. It seemed impossible for a man with so much strength and a towering presence that defied fragility to be taken by something quiet and unseen like a blood clot. It was strange for those who loved him. His death came out of the blue and hurt many people. People in his family lost a core, his co-stars lost a friend, and the public lost a symbol of goodness at a time when the world needed it more than ever. Michael Landon, who is known for keeping his feelings to himself, couldn't hold back his sadness. In her words, it was the end of an era. America also felt sad. This was a sad loss because Blocker was liked, and also because he stood for something rare. Morality in a world obsessed with power and glamour. Without him, Bonanza had to face something that couldn't be done. How can a show that's about family keep going without its heart? That question might be a reflection of something not related to TV. What happens to a society when people stop being kind? Who steps in to fill the gap? Blaster's death left more than just sadness behind. It left a challenge, a call to live by the ideals he stood for. Not in big statements, but in the small things people do every day that show who they really are. Respect, patience, loyalty, kindness, and a humble attitude. It wasn't through words that Blocker taught these principles. He taught them by being there, by how he dealt with fans, friends, strangers, and co-workers. He showed respect for the chances he had been given, and the people who helped him make them happen. He didn't see entertainment as a way to show off his ego. Instead, he saw it as a gift that could make people happy, make them laugh, and remind them that simple acts of kindness can have a big impact. Dan Blocker's story is not one of fame in the end. It's one of people. He won't be remembered for how many episodes he shot or how well Bonanza did in the ratings. Instead, it is defined by how many people's hearts he touched by just being kind in a mean world. His job may have put him in front of cameras, but it was the way he treated people that made them remember him. People remember Dan Blocker as more than just an actor these days. They remember a rare example of someone who is strong without being mean, successful without being cocky, smart without being rude, and powerful without wanting attention. They think of a fighter who loved peace, a teacher who cared about others, an actor who was true to himself, and a family man who loved his family more than anything else. This man's life shows us that how much someone cares is more important than how loud they speak. Along with his family, Dan Blocker loved his job, his craft, and the millions of viewers who let him into their houses. Because of this, he is known not only as Hose Cartwright, but also as a legend of kindness, a model of morality, and a man who showed that greatness is not measured by fame, but by kindness, lived quietly, consistently, and with all your heart. Even though he died too soon, his life is still full, with love, meaning and a reason for being. Because he played more than one beloved figure, Blocker's story lives on. He lived by the ideals that character stood for. He showed the world something very powerful in the end. There are times when the biggest person on the screen makes the biggest impact off of it. His spirit lives on in the memories he created, the lessons he taught, and the truth that even in this big, confusing world, a gentle giant can make all the difference.